Welcome to the Hyper Growth Zone podcast. This is your go-to resource for personal growth, mastering communication, and influencing and persuasion techniques that will help you unleash the full potential of yourself and others. Here is your host, Alex Morgan.
Welcome back, and this is episode 3 of the Hyper Growth Zone. And today we want to get into the topic of becoming a master at communication, because this is one of the easiest ways to grow. And it's also very simple. Everything that I talk about, I want to make it easy for you, and I want to make it simple for you. So many people, they're already doing these things. And the thing is they don't actually know that they're doing them. So most of the things that are going to get you to the hyper growth zone, you may be doing, however, you're doing them unconsciously. So you don't actually know what results you're going to get because your mind is just on autopilot. However, just imagine, what if you can install new habits and new ways of communicating? However, you also knew the process, so that when you went to do these things in the future, or you have interactions in the future, the results are predictable. Do you think that would be useful for you? I definitely think it would be useful for you. And since you're listening, I'm sure that you know communication is really the lifeblood of what we do. Our interactions, personal relationships, in business, in education, in trainings, whatever it is, communication is a must. And if you can master these skills that I'm going to talk about, then guess what? You're going to have a really easy and simple time communicating with anyone in their communication style. So imagine if you could communicate to someone exactly how they need to hear it. That would be useful, wouldn't it? I know it would be, because I have many interactions where if I'm telling someone something, and instead of listening, they immediately just reply, they try to give me advice, they try to say something, and they're not even taking the time to hear what I say. So I have to stop and I have to tell them, hey, listen to what I'm saying. They're actually not even trying to listen. So we want to avoid things like this. We want to deliver communication exactly how someone wants to hear it. And one of the things that we teach in our trainings is the meaning of communication is the response that you get. So what does this mean? Well, if you're communicating with someone, how much of the communication are you responsible for? The common answer most people would say, well, I'm responsible for 50% of the communication, and the other person says, I'm responsible for 50%. Okay, that's great. However, then you're only focusing on what you're saying. You're not considering the other person. So what if you keep delivering communication and you're not getting the response that you want? That's where the other 50% comes in. We teach that you should be responsible for 100% of the communication because it's coming from you. So if you want to get predictable results, why leave your results up to chance? If you want to get predictable results, then you need to be responsible for 100% of the communication. And that means delivering communication how people want to hear it. And if you can deliver communication how people want to hear it, then guess what? Your communication, your conversation, it's going to get better and better. You'll be able to influence people with ease. You'll get into such good rapport with them that they'll be accepting what you say uncritically. They won't even have to think about it. Unconsciously, you'll create that rapport, and they'll think, wow, this person is just like me. It's like I've known this person forever. They'll even feel that warmth inside. Have you ever had someone say something like that to you where you're communicating with them and all of a sudden they're like, man, it feels like I've known you forever. Or, hey, like, do you know so-and-so? It feels like we know the same people. It's because you have that unconscious rapport because you're talking. You're speaking to them how they want to hear it. So let's take sales, for example. Most people in sales, they sell how they want to be sold to. They follow a specific formula, how they want to be sold to unconsciously. And they push their communication on everyone else. And then they come back and they're thinking, well, why didn't I make all these sales? This person told me no. This person gave me an excuse that they don't have enough time. This person said it wouldn't work for them, but they think it can work for anyone else. That's because they're speaking to everyone in their communication style. We need to be flexible in our communication so everyone can listen. Everyone will want to listen. Everyone will want to tune in and see what we have to say. And they want to have that good feeling about what we're saying. So when we're speaking with people, we need to pick up on these things. If we can see as we're talking that something isn't working and they're not giving us the response that we want, then we need to be flexible. We need to be the one that's in charge. If we want to really enter the hyper growth zone, we need to be the ones to be flexible and make the changes so we get the results that we want. We want predictable results. And if we get predictable results, then we can help others do the same. And you can do that being a master at communication. So you need to notice small, minute things, changes in people when you're speaking to them. And one of the things that you can look for is the skin tone. Is it changing? When you're saying something, do they look like they're accepting your communication? And all of a sudden, does it go dark to light or light to dark? Something like this. It's almost like a blush. Now, we don't want to assume that if someone is blushing that they're excited or they're feeling a certain way. We want to look at it at that specific person. What does that mean to them? If you're saying something and you notice they go from light to a bit darker in their skin tone and they look excited and they sound excited and you can just tell that they feel excited, then keep going. Keep speaking how you're speaking. However, if you notice that they have that skin tone change, let's say from light to dark, and they're not accepting your communication, then you need to change it, because the meaning of communication is the response that you get. So this is one thing that you can notice. There's many others. Now the eyes, let's say you're looking into someone and all of a sudden their eyes get so defocused. This is something else you could look for. Does this mean that they are following along in your communication or not? So check the focus of the eyes as well. And another thing that you could look for is the lip, the lower lip. Is it kind of puffing out or is it flat? So notice when those small things change when you're speaking to someone, and notice the response that you're getting. So that later in the conversation, if you notice that same response, then you know where to take your communication. So this is a really easy way. Those are 3 things that you can easily look for, and you need to calibrate. So what does calibrate mean? Calibrate, what that means is you take like one photo of when they first did that, and then later, how do they look? Is there a difference? Do you notice a difference? When you started the conversation, that first photo, that's like a baseline. And then you look at the other photo when you noticed a change. How do they look? And notice when there's the change, are they accepting your communication or not? If they're not, then you need to be flexible. Because if you truly want to be a master at communication, you need to be flexible. You're not going to get the results that you want not being flexible and not changing your communication and not being 100% responsible for your communication. You don't want to be the type of person who, let's say, goes and gets on sales calls or speaking to people and you come back and you say, that didn't go so well, so-and-so did this, and we're pointing the finger at everyone else. No, we need to look inside of us and think, what can we do to make this communication better? And one of the things, of course, that you can always do to make communication better so the other person becomes like you, because I think we can assume that people that are like each other, they like each other. And so what we can do is we can build really deep, unconscious rapport. So what is rapport? Well, I kind of explained it earlier. However, it's a process of responsiveness. It really shows us that when we're like each other, we tend to like each other. And the opposite is also true. When we're not like each other, it's harder to find a common ground. It's harder to find solutions for each other. So this is another reason why we need to be flexible. We need to have a willingness to be curious about other people. So we can build in one instant, we can build rapport with just about anyone. And we need to have a willingness to experiment. We need to have an open mind. We need to be willing to try different things, to do different things, to build connections with people. This is how you truly become a master at communication. You have a willingness to be curious and a willingness to experiment. So those two things are really, really important. And the thing is with rapport, many people, since this is communication, we think we're just talking about language. No, we're not. There was a study done in the 1970s, and through this study, they saw that communication, the total of it, 100%, that 55% of communication is our physiology. So kind of our body language, what we're doing with that. 38% was the voice, the tone. And only 7% was the language, the actual verbal communication that we're using. Only 7%. That doesn't mean it's not important. Of course, what we say is highly important because, as I was speaking earlier, we need to deliver communication so it makes perfect sense to that other person, because that's going to get us the predictable results. So how would you like to know different ways to make that 7% really make the difference? So that small difference, we can really have it make the difference. So we'll go into a few different ways to do that. However, when building rapport, what we want to do is we want to match, or we want to mirror what the other person is doing. So of course, since 55% of communication is physiology, well then guess what? We can easily match 55% very easily. So there's different things that we can look at. Now, a lot of people, when they're doing rapport and they're matching a mirror, they tend to ask, well, what happens if I get caught? Won't someone know what I'm doing? No. Unless you're super obvious, unless you're like a kid making funny faces and laughing at the same time, no one will notice. And the reason is because when doing this at first, yes, you'll be doing it consciously. However, it's appealing to the other person's unconscious mind. So it's below their conscious awareness. They won't even know what we're doing. So really with rapport, we want to do this in an unconscious way because we want to be experts at it. We want to be a master at communication. We want to unconsciously do this process of rapport so we can appeal to the other person's unconscious. Because when we can appeal to their unconscious, it's very easy for them to like us. It's very easy for us to influence and persuade them so we both win. We always want to do this in the most ethical way, win-win situations. So please think that when doing anything like this. So when we're doing rapport, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at other people and we're going to notice things about them. So their physiology. So that since that's 55%, let's talk about a couple different things that you can match and mirror. So the first thing that's really, really easy to match and mirror is a person's posture. So how are they sitting? Are they slouched over? Are they straight up? Are they sitting in the front of the chair? In the back of the chair? Are they leaning a little to the left, to the right? Now, when I get on Zoom, one of the easiest ways I think to build rapport, you greet the person, you say hello, how are they doing? Start some conversation, and then notice, how is their posture? And on Zoom, it's very easy to tell the way their head is tilting. So notice that, and then slightly tilt your head. We want to be unobtrusive about this. Slightly tilt your head in the way that they're tilting theirs. So you can just start off matching and mirroring one thing, and you'll notice you'll easily be able to gain rapport. Now, another thing that you can match is their breathing. So notice the pace, so how quickly or how slowly they're breathing, and notice the location. Notice where it actually is in their body. So are they breathing more slowly or more quickly? And then notice, are they breathing up high in the chest or down below, a little more in the diaphragm, let's say? Or there's people who are belly breathers. So they're going to be breathing lower and slower. And the thing to consider is if you're building rapport with someone and they're talking, they're probably exhaling. So you can exhale with them. So notice things like this. And one other thing is just notice their facial expressions. Are they smiling? What are they doing? Are they blinking quite a bit? So if they're smiling and they're happy and they're doing all these things, just do a slight smile to build rapport. So those are 3 things that you can notice: the posture, the breathing, and the facial expressions. Easy. And if you can master just getting into rapport, matching those things, you'll get into rapport with ease. So in the voice, let's talk about the voice, because that's the other 38%. Physiology was 55%. The voice, we're talking about the tone. So how does my voice sound? Pick up on the tone of my voice as I'm speaking. Also, pick up on the volume. Is it high? Is it low? Is it loud? Is it soft? How is it? So if you're someone that talks soft and you're talking like this, and you're communicating with someone who's speaking like this, much more loud, then guess what? Slightly take it up. You don't have to do it to the extreme. Slightly do it. And also you can pay attention to their voice quality. What does their voice quality sound like? Is it like they're a voice over artist, like a radio DJ is a very good quality, high quality like this? Or maybe they have a more raspy voice. So pick up also on the quality. And just adjust yourself a little bit. Now we can talk about the words, the language that we use, because when most people think of communication, they specifically think about the words. So the words, what can we pick up on with the words? Well, the one thing that we do is we pick up on the predicates. So what does this mean? This means that we want to notice the sensory-based words that people are using. So if we're listening to someone, because really when we're first meeting someone, we should be asking them questions. We should do most of the listening and they should do most of the talking. If we're listening to someone, are they using more visual words? So things like see, sight, imagine, visual words, vision, insight, all of these things. Are they using more auditory words? Are they using things that have to do with hearing, hear, listen? That's music to my ears. Or are they using more kinesthetic words? And what does this mean? This means, are they using words that have to do with feelings? So feel, touch, grasp. So we notice what kind of words that they're using, what they're primarily using. And then when it's our turn to speak, we can use those same type of words. So if you notice mostly visual words, use mostly visual words. You can say, I see exactly what you're talking about. Why don't we have a look at this too? Or let's say they're talking mostly in auditory. Hey, I totally hear what you're saying. Would you like to listen to what I have to say here about, and whatever it is maybe that you're talking about? That would be important to them. And feeling words, kinesthetic words. You could say something like, wow, I have a really good feeling about this. Would you just like to, go through this and see if you have a good grasp on it. So those are just examples of the way people communicate. And those are the three kind of primary ways: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So we can also pick up on the level that they're speaking in. So are they speaking in super high up? Are they looking at the big picture? How are they kind of chunking their communication? Are they talking in terms of big picture? They're not giving you too many details, or they're not even asking for too many details. So if someone's speaking like that, which is typically someone like me, I'm more, towards the, let's say, big picture. If you go to give me detail after detail after detail, I'm bored. I've tuned you out. So you want to talk more in the big picture. You don't need to give all the specifications, all the features, all the benefits, all these things. Now, if you see that someone, as you're listening to them and getting a feel for how they talk, if you see they're more in the details, then you can talk more in the details. It's that easy. Go ahead and give them some specifics. Tell them some details of the strategies or the procedures or more about the program. You can get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty. However, the thing is, you don't want someone to get so caught up in the details, because guess what? It's easier for them to nitpick. So just keep in mind when you're communicating with people that if you're speaking more in the big picture, guess what? It's easier to gain agreement because there's less to disagree on. We're not saying all the details. However, if we get more in the details, then guess what? Someone can nitpick. Someone can find differences. And we want to be like people so we can build unconscious rapport with them. Let me give you an example of this. Let's say someone calls me and says, "Hey, Alex, I want to do one of your trainings." So I'll say something, "Oh, okay, great. Fantastic. Tell me a bit about yourself." So I can get to know them, of course, and I can see what they're saying. I can listen to the words they use, their tone of voice, all of these things. If they go into too many details, though, let's say they're asking me, "Hey, what are the certification boards? When is the break? How many things am I going to learn? How many weeks is the class? How many lessons are there?" If I'm just going and answering all their questions, I'm getting so far into the details that at some point they're probably going to disagree with me. Because what if I say, "Hey, my program lasts 3 months, it's 12 lessons, we go over this many topics," and what if they're like, "I was only expecting to learn 10 things, and yours has 27. So that shows that now they have resistance because I got too far in the details. So if I notice someone asking so many questions, or in the future when you do, you can say, "Okay, great. Thank you so much for your questions. These are all very good questions. I just want to, kind of backtrack a bit though, because if I were to tell you all of this information, I think it would be really helpful for you. However, would it really matter if you knew all of these details right now? Why don't we go back and talk a little bit more again about what you really want to achieve about a training? What's truly important to you about a training?" So now I've gotten them more to the big picture, and they're going to now tell me, because I asked them what's important, guess what? They're going to tell me what actually motivates them to take the training. All of these details are probably not going to motivate them to take the training. So that's an example. So if someone calls and asks me a bunch of questions, especially about, let's say, the certification boards, yes, that might be important to them. However, I need to truly find out what motivates them. And when I know what motivates them, those are going to be bigger picture words. And it'll be easier for me to tie their need, that motivation, to the value that they can get out of the training. So that's a different example, just one example of how you can get people out of the details. You can ask them for what purpose, or what's important to them, or what's their intention about this product, this service, or the conversation, whatever you're talking about. That's a way to get them to a bigger picture. So that's really the easiest ways to build rapport. So we have ways to match and mirror the physiology. We have ways to match and mirror the voice. And we also have ways to really be precise with our language. And why, again, do we want to be precise with our language? Because then we can get predictable results. So if you use these skills, along with noticing things like the light to dark on the skin, the eyes, the lip, and really calibrating to notice the difference so you can see what emotion they're feeling as you hear them talk, you can really become a master at communication. It's that easy. All you have to do, though, you have to practice. Because at first, you're going to be conscious as you're doing it. You're going to be thinking what to do, follow certain steps. What I told you should give you a nice little process on what you can do to do this. And then as you practice and get better and you notice the results, it's going to become unconscious to you. You're not even going to have to think about it, and you'll be building such good connections with people unconsciously. It'll appeal to their unconscious. And when you can appeal to someone's unconscious, it'll be that much easier for you and simple for you to influence the situation and persuade them to exactly where you want to go. So it's a win-win for each party. Again, always consider when you're doing any of this, win-win for each party. You want to do it ethically. And you can easily do that. There's no manipulation involved. It's easy to influence someone with these tools that I just gave you. And you can do it so both people win. We want everyone to have success. There's enough success to go around. There's enough money, love, everything. There's enough of it to go around. So these are some easy ways to become a master at communication. So that's it for this episode. Wherever you're listening to this episode, go ahead and rate the podcast. I'd love your feedback. I'd love a 5-star review. So wherever you are listening, go ahead and do that. And I'll be releasing the next one soon. So thanks for listening. And go ahead, if you want, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Athens NLP Studies, where we post different podcasts. We have tons of guided hypnosis sessions and tons of other videos that can really help you get to the hyper growth zone. So thanks again for listening, and I'm looking forward to you listening and seeing, and I'm excited to hear what you would feel about the next episode. So thanks.